Hey folks, Russ Bailey here. It's time for another Brush Pile Fishing, the video podcast. And as always, we've got a great guest in store, a man that I shot a show with that aired here in December. And I've since went back and fished with him when me and my wife was on vacation, had a great time again. And I want to try to get another trip out of him. So you stay tuned. Gary Burks from Florida is going to join us. And we're here in Ohio freezing our butts off. Gary's down there. He's actually recovering from a surgery. But stay tuned. We'll be right back with Brush Pile Fishing, the podcast. All right, folks, welcome back to the video podcast brought to you by Bob Cycle in Sydney, Ohio. And my guest today from sunshiny Florida, Gary Burks. How we doing, Gary?
I'm doing wonderful, Russ. How are you?
Good, man. Gary is also known down there as the Crappie Assassin and the Crappie Assassin Guide Service. Is it a little bit warmer in Florida than it is here in Ohio?
Well, let's just take your temperature and add about 50 degrees to that, and that's about what we got right now.
Man, I don't like you. You know that? Tell you what, Gary, you guide on several lakes down in Florida, and we're talking January fishing. What's going on down there? What patterns, what lakes are you fishing? What's going on?
See, the nice thing about fishing in Florida in January is you can never get bored because there's so many different techniques that you can use that are effective during that time. Both long line trolling, spider rigging are both good. Also, believe it or not, that time of year, you still can get some really nice fish, dock shooting, as well as finding fish in deep water and jigging structure in deeper water.
Now, when you say deeper water, it's a little bit different in Florida with them shallow lakes, right?
Well, the deeper water that I'm talking about is mainly when I say the St. Johns River or any type of river, because you can actually find some water that's, 20 to 30 feet in the river, which you definitely won't find in any of our lakes here because they're relatively shallow lakes that we fish in. But the St. Johns River is world renowned and it holds fish every month of the year. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful place to fish.
Gary, I remember talking about the St. John's. So we had already taped the show. I think we did that in February. And then my wife and we went down to Florida for vacation. And it was a great trip. We got to see some spring training baseball. But she told me one day, she said, I just want to stay here at the pool. She said, if you want to go fishing with Gary, man, I jumped on that opportunity. We fished. We fished. Now, listen, folks, and we'll talk about this later in more detail. But the day that we actually taped the show, we had 30 to 35 mile an hour winds come in, and it was tough. It was tough to hold a boat anywhere, let alone fish. And that day we got a nice show, but Gary, you stuck at it. But when we came down in March, me and the wife and I jumped on the boat with you. Conditions were good, and we went to the St. John's and we fished some of that deep structure, and we caught some nice fish that day.
Caught some really nice fish, yeah. And the crazy thing is, those fish were still in those same areas when we filmed, but the weather was just so bad, we had no way of staying on those fish. So even though we didn't catch as many fish as we wanted when we filmed the show, I think it was a really good show for people to see that if you stick with it, they still can get some fish, because we tried a multitude of techniques, a multitude of areas. And then I think one of our best areas came from a tree that didn't look like anything would be holding under it.
Yes.
And we got some really nice fish from under some limbs, which is pretty cool. So that was fun.
And, folks, one of the things I like promoting guides that I've already fished with, that I know you're going to have a good time with when you fish. You're going to learn some things. and that even when the bite's tough, they're going to stay persistent and try to get you some fish. And that's what we did the day we taped the show. We started out on Lake Beersford. And like I say, in the morning, it was nice and calm, but the winds picked up so quick. So we got off the main lake, we got into the river, and then we did what Gary said. We found some limbs, some trees. We caught some fish there. And then, when we was on Beersford, the wind started to lay down a little bit late afternoon. And I told Gary, he knew, but I told him anyways, man, them docks was calling me. You know, I love dock shooting. And we went back there late in the afternoon. We just had a little bit of time left to fish and actually caught some nice fish out of them docks too. And shallow water, we were fishing something I was comfortable with. Most of those docks were in about 5 to 7 foot of water and just shooting under there. I caught some with a cork, some without. So there's a lot of things down there. And if you've never been to Florida, folks, let me tell you, man, one of the coolest things, Gary, when we taped was the wildlife that we got to see down there.
Oh, yeah. We got the cameraman was so in tune with every type of bird and every type of animal that we saw. And he was, just educating us on, like a lot of the animals that we were seeing some of them were actually endangered. Yeah. And he had all that stuff down. So that was somebody that likes to watch birds and animals. Florida is a great place for wildlife. It's just a great place to live and just to be outside in. So that was really fun.
It was cool. And I know on that final cut of the show, we've got some gators that we were pretty close to, which I've seen those before. But I think this is the first show I've ever done in Florida where we had the manatees 3 foot from our boat. And that was pretty cool, man.
Yeah, they are very, very friendly. They like to hang out with you. Sometimes you'll sit and fish in a spot for 15, 20 minutes and they'll sit right next to the side of the boat and just come up and nudge the boat a little bit. And they're really friendly. And it can scare the crap out of somebody that's not used to it because they're big animals and they get really close. But for us, that's kind of getting used to them now. I mean, it's really cool to see them come out and just hang out. And it's always a good time to see those guys because usually when you see those manatees, you know that they're not disturbing the fish at all. Mm-hmm. So when you see those manatees, unlike when you see gators and stuff like that, you pretty much welcome a manatee sighting, where a gator sighting is not so much liked because he's looking for fish too.
Well, you know what? And I don't mind. I didn't mind the manatees. I didn't mind the gators. But man, Gary, you did a great job. I'd never seen a snake when I was fishing with you down there.
Hey, well, listen, and we will try to keep it that way because I am not a fan of snakes either. So we'll definitely try to keep all of our adventures snake free if we can.
Now let's concentrate on the month of January and then going into the spring fishing. Okay, so in January, what kind of water temperatures do you normally have? What lakes do you like to fish this time of year?
Well, in January, the water temps are going to be hovering right in that 60, anywhere from 62 to 64 degrees. And that's prime spawn temperature. So what I'm going to be looking for is lakes or portions of the river that are going to hold a nice variety of the lily pads and eelgrass and cattails and stuff like that, because when those fish get on those spawn beds, sometimes they shove up in a foot of water. Mm-hmm. So you got to be able to get into that shallow stuff, because now in December they do more of a transition. You can catch them. Some will start to move into the pads now, but you still can catch a lot of fish out on deep structure. When January comes, those fish are going to start moving into the shallows, and it doesn't matter where you are. They're going to start to make their march into the shallows to start to spawn. So you want to target your area, your search in 10 foot of water or less. I've caught fish literally in a foot of water. I've seen fish sometimes where you can almost see the backs of their backs out of the water. They're in that shallow of water.
We've done that up here, man. You just throw that little jig and cork right in front of them, and
right,
bam.
and they just smash it. Right.
I know that you love the river down there. You're
Oh
on
yeah.
Beersford a lot. Lake Jessup. A couple years ago, my partner Tom Peterson and I was down there doing a show, and the guide that I was going to go out with on another lake ended up getting COVID. His wife got COVID, so he couldn't tape with us. And I remember Fred Carter was fishing with you, and Fred said, "Let's call Gary. Maybe he can help you out." You gave me some information, and me and Tom went and shot that show in Jessup, and that turned out to be a dynamite show. So you guide on a lot of different lakes down there.
Yeah, I cover, believe it or not, I cover about 200 miles.
No
I,
kidding.
I travel all the way from Lake Talquin, that's in Tallahassee, all the way down to Okeechobee. And what my niche is, most guys have a body of water that they particularly like to fish in. I can kind of consider myself like a guy with a niche, because what I do is I pride myself on pretty much being able to go anywhere and catch fish.
Okay.
I really trust my electronics. I put in a lot of time in a lot of different lakes. So the main thing is time. Anybody that has electronics know how to use them, but a lot of guys don't travel as much as I do. I have so many customers that come from so many different parts in the state, because Florida's so big. I like to be able to accommodate them to a certain point where, maybe they don't have to drive 4 miles to 4 hours to fish with me. Maybe they can only, have to drive an hour and a half, and I can go fish somewhere, a little closer to them. So I do try to accommodate, and that's great. But it also gives me the ability to learn these lakes that I normally wouldn't have the opportunity to fish. And I think that helps the fishing, helps my knowledge a lot, because it also helps me when I have tournaments that I have to fish on these lakes, that now I got at least a starting point on what I want to do, because I've taken a client down to that lake. So it all kind of works out different. So you would be surprised the different techniques that you use from one lake to another. There's some lakes that you go to and they only want hair jigs. That's it. I don't care what other color you want. I know lakes that you go to and they'll only hit minnows. I know lakes that you can go to, they'll only hit grass shrimp. So just knowing the different lakes and what the fish like really helps you to consistently stay on fish for your clients.
Gotcha. And I can tell you this, folks, from experience now, if you're on the St. John's or Beersford or Jessup, I love my crappie magnets, and the mermaid is one dynamite color down there. Glow Pop is a dynamite color. Anything black and chartreuse has worked for me when I'm down there. And Gary, we all have our favorite colors because we're creatures of habit. What's your favorite color combination?
Well, you know what? I gotta admit this to you, Russ. I like a lot of colors, but I'll tell you this. That daggone Glow Pop, I'm trying to tell you, I don't know what it is. I don't know. I've caught fish, and I mean good fish, on every single lake using that Glow Pop. So the Glow Pop is definitely in my top 3. But I've been catching a lot of fish lately with natural colors.
Okay.
Gold, dark brown colors, the June bug colors that I normally wouldn't throw. I mean, to be honest with you, for years, all I threw was pink, white, and chartreuse in some type of a variation. And I caught all the fish that I wanted on that. Lately, it seems like they might have been tired of seeing those colors. So now they're going more toward the natural colors. And I think that with the storms that we get here and the constant water rising and lower, I think a lot of those grass shrimp and a lot of those small, a lot of larvae and stuff like that that's in the water, I think they're starting to eat a lot more of those. And I think it's starting to be represented by the style of jigs and the color of jigs that we're having to use now, because they're starting to eat a lot more of those things versus some of the maybe minnows that they used to or whatnot. But, it changes from week to week. But, when we got tackle boxes like we have, I think we're probably pretty equipped to deal with any changes.
And the problem is The problem is a lot of anglers are like us. They've got every color you need, but man, sometimes, we've caught them on this color every time. So sometimes when they won't hit that, it's like pulling teeth to get us to change colors sometimes. We're too stubborn sometimes.
It is. You know what I've started doing? When the bite gets tough and they won't go with anything that I typically throw, I pull out the ugliest, weirdest looking color combination that I can find, and I'll throw that. Because you know what? Sometimes it's just something that either the style, the color, even the size of something that they've never really seen before triggers that strike. And it might not be a strike because they're hungry. It can just be a reaction strike. But
yeah,
we just want to catch them. We don't care how the bite comes about, reaction or otherwise. But I've been doing that lately, and I've been throwing some really ugly jigs out there. Believe it or not, sometimes they react pretty well to them.
Yeah. Well, I remember when we came down, me and my wife came down there in March. I tried that, and it's a combination that works for me everywhere. It's another one, but it's Butler Gold with a pink head. A lot of people aren't going to even try that. Man, it is a dynamite combination for whatever reason.
For whatever reason, right? Hey, one thing that you can't do, you can't argue with the fish, and you can't argue with results. If that's the color that they want that day, listen, I tell you this, like I told you, if you catch another fish on that glow pop, I'm putting one on. And sure enough, I got a two fish limit. If you catch two fish on a color and I haven't caught one, guess what? I'm putting one on.
Now listen, so we're gonna put your guide information up here, but that's based on one condition, all right? On the river. The old house that I said reminds me of Cool Hand Luke. Don't be taking nobody there, man. That's my spot. That's Russ Bailey's spot, okay?
What a beautiful spot that is, right?
And that second trip down there, man, we whacked them under there.
Well, let me tell you this. The other day we fished it. The last day that I got a chance to fish before my surgery, we went under there and caught, I don't know, maybe 45 fish. But check this out. The biggest 7 was, I want to say it was 13.76.
You're killing me, man.
Average, almost a 2-pound average, bro.
Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me. Folks, I'll tell you what.
And not even to consider all of the pound and a halves that we threw back,
and the thing that gets me, that's a spot. All joking aside, if you do, someone books you and you end up taking them there, even if they have never dock shot, that's a good place to start because you've got some clearance between the water and the top of that. That's a good place to learn to dock shoot. And both times I've been there, anyways, it has been loaded with fish. It's been a good time.
Yeah. It's a good spot. Next time you come down here, I got another spot that I'm gonna show you. And I think after I show you this spot, you're gonna be looking for a house here in Florida.
Now you got to blindfold me till we get there, or what?
I do have to blindfold you. Yes.
So I'll tell you what, Gary. If someone wants to book a trip with you, what's the easiest way to get in touch with you?
The easiest way to get in touch with me would probably be my website, which is crappieassassinguideservice.com. And that way I get a lot of people that call sometimes, but this time of year, there's so many people like this month right here, December, and it just happened. There's nothing on the schedule. I'm booked until probably the second week in January.
Okay.
So it's best that they contact me on the website because the website actually blocks that day out if they book it. So we don't have an issue where they call me and I end up forgetting or something and I end up getting double booked because I'm not right in front of the schedule. So website is best. They always can contact me personally by calling me as well. I prefer the website, but calling me is a good option as well.
Okay, there you have it, folks. We'll have all the information up here. Gary, as always, man, it's good to talk to you. I hope you get recovered 100% from that ankle surgery.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, Russ.
All right, you have a good one. Hopefully, I will see you. As a matter of fact, I talked to Fred Carter the other day. We're trying to get something lined up on a Florida trip for this year and tape with him and Joe. And I'd love to get in our show with you if you got the time.
Hey, well, I'll always make time for you, Russ.
All right, you have a good one, my friend.
All right, you too, brother. Take care.
All right, Gary Burks, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. Gary is a super guy down there in Florida. And again, if we bring him on our show, it's someone I highly recommend. I fished with him a couple times now, and I've had an absolute blast. So give him a call. Folks, I hope you enjoyed it. But before we take off, another reminder, if you don't have the BrushPile fishing app, get that on your phone. It is completely free no matter what kind of phone you have. It's got a ton of information. All of our shows are there. If you want to book a trip with Gary, guess what? We've got a guide section there. You go right there to Florida, pick his name. You can book that trip right through the app. So check it out. It's free. It's the BrushPile fishing app. Folks, I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned. We'll be back with another video podcast here on BrushPile Fishing.